The air smelled of fried plantains, egusi stew, and roasted peppered chicken. The soft glow of scented candles lit up the elegant dining room of their Lekki townhouse. Amaka had spent 6 hours cooking, polishing the cutlery, laying out the best dishes, hoping tonight would be special. But it wasn't. It was humiliating. Kunle's friends, 3 men dressed in designer shirts and empty pride, shoved spoons into her food, chewed with exaggerated frowns, then burst into laughter. "Bro, are we eating in a local buka? Nah, wow. This rice they fight back. This chicken fit break teeth." They laughed louder, and Kunle, her own husband, laughed with them. Amaka's hands tightened on the edge of the table. She forced a smile. "Is something wrong with the food?" Kunle waved a hand, chuckling. "No, Jaw, babe, just banter. You know boys will be boys." "But they're eating my food," she replied, voice steady but tight. One of them leaned back. "Ah, madam, now joke now, or you won't cry." Amaka felt something shift inside her. Not anger, not sadness, something deeper. A silence, a decision forming. She stood up quietly. "Excuse me," she said, and she walked out. In the kitchen, she stared at the sink, her knuckles white from gripping the counter. The smell of the food she had poured love into now made her sick. She wanted to scream, to throw everything. But instead, she wiped a single tear and whispered to herself, "Never again." That night, long after the laughter died down and plates were left half-eaten, Kunle walked into the bedroom. She lay on the bed, facing the wall. "You know they didn't mean it," he mumbled. She didn't answer. "They're just not used to, local food." That word again, local. She turned her head. "I'm not ashamed of how I cook." He sighed as if she were the problem. "Maybe next time, just order something nice." Her heart cracked a little deeper. She stared at him, really stared, and realized something that chilled her to the bone. He was embarrassed by her, by everything she was. She turned away silently, but inside her, a new fire had been lit, hotter than any kitchen flame. She would not beg, she would not explain. She would cook again, yes, but not for them, not like this, and definitely not in this house. What Kunle didn't know was that Amaka had once turned down a culinary scholarship to stay and build a home with him. But that home had just crumbled, and she was about to rebuild something far greater. Before Kunle, Amaka had dreams that made her hands itch. She used to wake up before dawn, just to experiment in her mother's narrow kitchen. Puff puff with suya spice caramel, ogbono soup thickened with roasted cashew paste, jollof rice steamed in coconut milk and lemongrass. She cooked like she was painting, each meal a canvas of flavor, tradition, and quiet genius. Everyone knew she had a gift. So when she got accepted into a prestigious culinary institute in Cape Town with a partial scholarship, her mother danced in the compound singing praises. But Kunle had just proposed, and he made the choice seem simple. "Why waste time in another country when we could start our life now?" he'd said, arms around her waist, voice soft with promises. He didn't ask her to choose, he just expected her to. And like so many women raised to believe love was the highest calling, she packed away the scholarship letter and wore the ring instead. She moved into his townhouse, left her dreams on the shelf, and focused on being a good wife. She cooked, cleaned, supported his business, smiled at his friends. And on the night they mocked her food, she realized what it had cost her. Days passed. Kunle didn't bring it up again. He acted like everything was normal, like her silence wasn't heavy, like something hadn't shifted between them. But Amaka was changing. She began rising before him again, but not to cook for him. Instead, she unlocked the dusty notebook at the back of her drawer, pages filled with old recipes and new ones that had lived in her head for years. She started testing them in secret, small batches. She sent samples to her old neighbor, Mama Remy, who ran a buka nearby. "Now your hand do this," Mama Remy said, licking her fingers. "Ah, this one pass restaurant." She encouraged her, and Amaka listened. She began writing a plan, renting kitchen space when Kunle thought she was visiting a friend. She borrowed money from an old savings account he didn't know about, and when Mama Remy introduced her to a food vlogger who posted one of her dishes, everything changed. The video went viral. "This local dish tastes like fine dining," one follower wrote. Comments poured in. Investors messaged. Doors she had forgotten how to knock on were swinging open. Still, Amaka said nothing to Kunle. She cooked dinner, smiled when spoken to, played her part. But behind that soft expression, she was building, quietly, powerfully. One night, she sat on the balcony, sipping zobo she'd infused with dried hibiscus and orange rind. Her phone buzzed. An investor's approval. The final piece. It was time. She looked up at the moon and whispered, "Let them laugh again." The lease was signed. The name was chosen. The vision was clear. All that remained was the perfect opening night and the perfect guest list. Amaka stood in the middle of a half-empty space on Victoria Island. The floors were dusty, the walls bare, pipes stuck out where the sink should be. But her eyes didn't see broken tiles or missing paint. She saw gold-plated menus, waiters in linen aprons, tables set under soft yellow lights. She saw her future. She called it Native Soul, a restaurant born from everything they once mocked, dishes that honored the flavor of her roots, but elevated with elegance and skill. She poured everything into it, every kobo she had, every recipe she'd written, every ounce of pain they left her with. For 2 months, she worked like a woman on fire. She interviewed chefs, hand-picked furniture, partnered with a nutritionist to design fusion options. Every ingredient was local, from the Ado Ekiti yams to the Calabar spices, but the vision was global. Mama Remy helped with staffing. The food vlogger connected her with a photographer who made pounded yam look like art. Still, Amaka said nothing to Kunle. Each morning she left early. "Errands," she'd say. Each night she returned smelling of roasted peppers and groundnut oil, but he never asked questions. He had grown used to ignoring her presence. It made things easier. Until one evening, he came home early, agitated. "You won't believe what happened today," he said, loosening his tie. "We went to see a new restaurant that just opened. Some girl from the streets trying to act like a gourmet chef." Amaka froze, her heart thudding. He continued. "The place looked expensive, but the menu? Pounded yam with scent leaf cream sauce, fried plantain cubes in lemon drizzle." I almost laughed. "The boys said it looked like your style, those weird combos you used to try." He laughed, but Amaka didn't. She just stirred her pot of ogi and let the silence rise like steam between them. He had no idea. He was laughing again, and once more, at her. But this time, she wasn't hurt. She was focused. A week later, Native Soul was fully booked for its first private tasting night. Invitations went out. Selective. Intentional. Among the VIP guests, Kunle's circle of friends, and Kunle himself. The email came from a marketing firm, elegant, anonymous, no hint of her name. She waited for him to mention it. He didn't. Maybe he was embarrassed he wasn't the one invited. Maybe he assumed she wouldn't know. But she knew everything. The guest list, the menu, the cameras that would roll, everything was in place. That night, as she sat in her quiet kitchen, the same kitchen where they once laughed at her, she folded napkins into the shape of flames. Symbolic. Because tomorrow she would burn every lie they told about her, with truth served hot, plated in gold. The night arrived. The restaurant doors opened, and one by one they walked in, never guessing who owned the building or who had prepared the meal. The valet opened the door to a sleek black SUV. Kunle stepped out first, adjusting his blazer. Behind him, the boys followed, laughing loud, their voices thick with pride and perfume. "Native Soul," one of them read aloud, eyeing the golden sign above the glass doors. "Sounds like another wannabe fine dining spot. Hope the food no go bite back this time," another joked. Kunle smirked, but his eyes wandered. There was something familiar in the air, something he couldn't place. Inside, the restaurant glowed like a page out of a magazine. Soft lighting bounced off copper chandeliers. The walls carried murals of Nigerian village life, women pounding yam, children roasting corn, elders laughing by moonlight. It was stunning, charming, elegant. Each table had a card with the guest's name handwritten in gold ink. Waiters moved like dancers, trays balanced with roasted snail croquettes and pepper soup shots in champagne flutes. This place is not bad, Kunle admitted, taking a seat. None of them noticed the woman watching them from the private viewing gallery above. Amaka stood behind tinted glass, heart steady, face calm. She wore a deep emerald gown, her hair tied in a soft knot, skin glowing under soft light. She didn't need to be seen yet. Not now. Let them taste the food first. Let them savor what they once called local. The tasting menu began. Starter, yam balls stuffed with goat cheese and caramelized onions. Main course, smoked catfish jollof with scent leaf butter and crispy onions. Dessert, akara millefeuille, layered with honeyed cream and plantain dust. The men chewed in stunned silence. Guy, this jollof is... Forget! I never taste fish like this before. Na Nigerian food be this. Kunle said nothing. He kept looking around, that uneasy feeling returning. This wasn't just food, it was art. And something about the flavor felt personal. Halfway through dessert, the lights dimmed. A soft spotlight lit the center of the room. A young woman walked up with a mic. Good evening, dear guests. Thank you for attending the private launch of Native Soul. In a moment, our executive chef and owner will join you. Whispers buzzed. Some sat up straighter. Kunle checked his cufflinks. Then the doors at the side opened. He turned and froze. Amaka stepped in, heels silent, head high, grace flowing in every step. Gasps rippled. Forks dropped. Kunle's eyes widened in disbelief. Amaka? She smiled, slow and warm. Good evening, everyone. The room was silent. Her voice echoed softly. I'm Chef Amaka, founder and executive chef of Native Soul. One of the men nearly choked. Another blinked rapidly. Wait, what? She walked to their table, placed a final dish in front of them, fried chicken thigh glazed with peppered palm wine reduction. Kunle was still staring, mouth half open. I remember you said my food belonged in a buka, she said, tone gentle, almost kind. I just thought you should know. She leaned in slightly. I own this buka now. The cameras were rolling, the reviews were pouring in, and the truth had just been served. But Amaka wasn't done, not yet. One more course remained. Closure. Kunle sat frozen, fingers clenched on the edge of the table as the soft buzz of stunned whispers swept through the room. His friends were no better. The same men who mocked Amaka's food now stared at their plates like traitors caught in the act. She didn't rush. Amaka stood calmly, shoulders relaxed, a quiet storm wrapped in satin and grace. I want to thank you, she said, voice even, for the dinner at my home that night, the one where you laughed. She turned slightly, letting her gaze fall on each of them. See, if you hadn't embarrassed me, I might have stayed hidden. I might have continued shrinking myself to fit into a table where I was never truly welcome. A few guests nearby murmured. One woman whispered, That's her husband? Kunle's ears burned. His smile cracked under the weight of the moment. I created Native Soul for people who think Nigerian food is just local, something to laugh at, Amaka continued. But tonight, you've proven that food isn't the problem. She let that hang in the air. The problem is how small your taste can be, when your pride is bigger than your palate. A ripple of gasps moved through the room. Then, silence. Amaka turned, heels clicking softly on the marble floor, as she walked away from their table. Halfway across the room, a waiter handed her a bouquet from one of the event sponsors. She accepted it with a nod, never once looking back. Kunle stood abruptly, knocking his chair backward. Amaka, wait! She paused without turning. Yes. I didn't know. You should have told me. I could have... You could have what? She said, still not facing him. Stood up for me? Defended my cooking? Stopped laughing when they mock me in my own home? He swallowed hard. I was caught off guard. She finally turned, her face unreadable. You didn't defend me because deep down you were ashamed of me. He opened his mouth to argue, but she held up a hand. And that's okay, because I'm no longer ashamed of myself. Another round of applause broke out from a different table. Then another and another. The entire restaurant had heard everything. Kunle looked around, suddenly exposed. Someone whispered. She really fed him his own words. Someone else chuckled. Talk about poetic justice. Kunle's friends stayed quiet. Their plates sat half-finished, no one daring to take another bite. Amaka smiled politely. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. She walked toward the back, where press cameras were waiting, where investors and journalists stood excited, impressed. Meanwhile, Kunle slumped back in his chair, the realization crashing down on him. The woman he tried to dim had just outshone them all, and they were seated in her spotlight. 3 weeks later, a new food columnist would write, "She didn't just serve food. She served vindication, plated with dignity." But Amaka's story didn't end at revenge. It began with something even greater, choosing herself. 3 weeks after the tasting night, Native Soul had become a phenomenon. Reservations were booked out for 2 months. A-list celebrities posted her food. The Guardian called her the culinary alchemist of Lagos. But Amaka stayed grounded. She woke early, just like she used to. Her fingers still smelled of onions and nutmeg. She still tasted every broth, adjusted every sauce, trained every new waiter like she was teaching her younger self. She didn't do it for applause. She did it because it healed her. One quiet morning, she sat by the large window in her office overlooking the restaurant floor. The sun filtered through linen curtains. She sipped kunyu from a clay cup, warm, rich, spiced with memory. There was a knock on the door. It was Kunle. He looked different, not polished, not proud, just tired. "I've been trying to reach you," he said softly. Amaka looked up, her face calm. "I know," he stepped closer, but didn't sit. I wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything." "I was wrong." She nodded once. "Yes, you were." The silence stretched. "I didn't support you," he added. "I didn't believe in you." Amaka placed her cup down gently. "But you believed in them, in their laughter, in their mockery. That told me everything." He swallowed. "I've lost you, haven't I?" Her gaze met his, gentle, steady. "You didn't lose me, Kunle. You gave me away the day you let me be humiliated in my own kitchen." He looked down. "But I'm grateful," she added, "because in losing your love, I found mine. I found my voice." She stood, walked to the window, and pointed to the floor below where customers dined. "That's my dream. And I built it with my own 2 hands." Kunle nodded, eyes wet. "I hope someday you forgive me." "I already have," she said. "But that doesn't mean we go back." He left quietly.
Women and Gele laughed over wine, where young lovers shared soya skewers like secrets, where a girl with a spiral notebook took notes, just like Amaka once did. Later that evening, a journalist asked her during a radio interview, "What's next for Chef Amaka?" She smiled. "I want to open a second branch, maybe in Ibadan. And someday, a culinary school, for girls like me who once thought their dreams were too local to matter." That night, alone in her apartment, she sat at her small dining table, just one seat, one candle, one plate of spicy yam porridge, and a side of grilled prawns. She took a bite, closed her eyes, and whispered, "This is exactly how it was meant to taste." Not all victories are loud. Some are plated softly, seasoned with silence, and served at a table you built yourself. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell. Thank you. We hope to see you in our next video.